The mega bounce just started, ladies and gentlemen. AMC stock up over 9% here on the day at the time of recording this video. By the time you guys see it, might be a little different, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, but it does not matter because all of this data and information is going to be the same no matter when you are watching this video, and it looks like the mega bounce has started. We talked about this over the last couple of days, and a lot of it really just comes down to some common sense, but the data is actually here to support this. So we're going to get into everything you need to know about this next leg up or bounce, whatever you want to call it, with AMC stock. Granted, we have fallen quite a bit over the last couple of weeks, so we're only making up ground that we have recently lost. So keep that in mind. Let's get into all of this key information. I do not want to waste your time here in this video. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, source your comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. Let's get into it, baby. It is good to see some green on the screen. That kind of rhymed, but it's good to see some green. Now, AMC up about 9%, like I said. You're back above $4.50 per share, our key support level. So you want to watch that. You're at $4.58 right now. So you're only 8 cents above that. So keep in mind, it's not that much yet. And I do think this rally, this bounce, will continue. The main premise of this, besides the data and the numbers that we'll look at here in just a second, really comes down to this. You got this yes vote yesterday, right? March 14th, apparently everyone and their mothers and your brothers and your cousins and your aunts and your uncles voted yes for this approval, which it's the hedge funds. Let's be honest. April 27th, you're going to get a court date that the Allegheny County Retirement System Fund, whatever you want to call them, is saying that due to this deal with Intera Capital, basically setting up this arbitrage trade, allowed for all the hedge funds, institutional investors to buy APE, which they otherwise would have not, to pass this initiative, even though it does not benefit AMC common stockholders. Now, the deal with Intera Capital alone, that controlled about 35% of the voting power, or the total votes needed to pass this initiative. So basically, long story short, all this, it didn't matter if every single AMC investor voted for this. There was enough 8 votes based off of what Adam Aaron did with the deal with Intera Capital and the arbitrage trade that was created there. Because after all, AMC, Intera Capital, they did this whole agreement to sell 225 million APE shares to Intera, with the agreement that Intera would vote yes to this proposal. So they basically rigged the vote. That's what is being proposed in court. Now, at the very least, coming April 27th, you're going to get another court date. Or maybe the judge rules on it that day and says you need to have a revote, right? Maybe only shares that were owned prior to December can actually count to be voted. I'm not sure if that's actually possible or if that's something that could happen. But either way you put it, this is probably not going to be settled on April 27th. Then you're going to probably have another 2 months until the next court date. May, June. And then you might have another court date after that. But let's just stick with that June timeframe. Early summer, midsummer, that's kind of my expectations. Either way, from now until April 27th, you have a month and a week and a half until April 27th. That creates a lot of uncertainty. That puts the stock in limbo here because even though you got a yes vote, it's still up to the courts to decide. And I think it's pretty well known that it's not going to be decided on for a while. Now, that puts uncertainty around this whole trade that hedge funds have been, arbitraging on, right? And the arbitrage has been short AMC, go long on APE to try to play the spread. In theory, APE should rise, AMC should fall. They should somewhat meet in the middle, right? That's the trade. So you have a lot of time from now until then, and you've already fallen a lot. So to get back to where we were just a week or two ago, back to that $6 range, makes a lot of sense from now until April 27th, possibly going even higher than that if analysts and people start to spread doubt if this was actually going to pass in the way that it was voted on in the court system. The more doubt you get, the higher AMC could go from now until April 27th. This is kind of like after earnings. If a company does really bad, let's say FedEx in after hours today does very bad, analysts, they're going to come out, they're going to be pretty negative. They're probably going to cut their price targets, all that. Couple days later, week or two later, they're going to be, maybe it's not as bad as we were thinking it was, and you start to get people taking the contrary side. So that's really what we're faced with from now until April 27th. And there's a lot of time here, and that's why you are going to get this bounce. Now, there's data and numbers that actually suggest that AMC should bounce more than not over the next couple of days. And if you actually take a look at the numbers here, you can see it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty obvious. So take a look at the option activity. Number one, and we'll talk about FTDs. We'll talk about technicals here in just a second as well. If you look at the option activity for tomorrow, you got now 20,000 calls in the money, 720,000 calls that are out of the money. Now, when the option expiration is 1 day away, essentially, out of this 720,000 calls, any of these that go into the money will have to instantly be hedged for. So it's one of those scenarios where if you had this kind of option activity over a couple week period, right, until option expiration, if they go into the money, not as big of a deal because you don't have to hedge them right away. They're not expiring within hours or within a day like it is potentially tomorrow. Now, if you start to get a lot of these calls go into the money, they'll instantly have to be hedged for, and that's why on some of these large option expirations, you can see some very big rallies on that Thursday and Friday. Today is Thursday, you're up 10%. Would not surprise me to see more calls go into the money and to see AMC stock rally another 10 to 20% tomorrow. Now, on top of that, the puts, when the puts are in the money, that's essentially puts that have been hedged for, right? Heading into tomorrow, the last day of these options lifetime, right? Until they expire tomorrow. So this already accounts for shares that have been shorted with AMC. 312,000, that's what? 30 million shares potentially short-term shorted on AMC. Now, if you do get a rally to the upside, you're going to get those calls go into the money. That's going to be hedging. You're going to get puts that go from into the money, out of the money, and that's going to consist of buying to get rid of those shorted shares, right? To oblige for the puts that were in the money. Hopefully this makes some sense. So calls go into the money, we know that is bullish. When puts go out of the money, that is also bullish, and both of these lead to buying pressure. And given the sheer number of options here, and given how weighted the option chain is right now, and being so bearish since we have fallen quite a bit, to get a bounce from here, you're going to see a lot of buying pressure come in on very short notice, aka today and tomorrow. Reason why AMC is up 9 to 10%. Likely by the time you guys are watching this video, it's up 9 and some change right now. So that in a nutshell is why some of these large option expiration numbers can be very big for Thursdays and Fridays. Essentially where the mega bounce comes from. It's due to the lack of time until expiration. On top of that, you're going to see the largest FTDs coming due that you have seen in months and months and months, pretty much years on AMC. And that's going to be tomorrow. Now, and that's for March 17th. You guys can see right here, you're going to have 6.8 million failure to delivers that come due. That's higher than the 3.9 million that you are seeing today. So almost double what the number is today that you will see tomorrow. So that should also help give you some buying pressure. But even if you look at the following week, if you look at March 20th, and this is going to be the week of the FOMC on Wednesday, and that is going to be March 22nd. On Monday, you're going to have 7.3 million FTDs. On Tuesday, almost 12 million FTDs. On Wednesday, the FOMC day, Federal Holiday, whatever you want to call it, where they're probably going to raise rates, you got almost 10 million FTDs. On Thursday, almost 11 million FTDs, 10.7 million FTDs. On Friday, another 10 million FTDs. Then that following week to close out March, you do start to fall off with FTDs going from 10 million on Monday down to 1 million on Friday. So really, today, tomorrow, and next week, you're going to have very high levels of FTDs. This should fuel some of this bounce that we are seeing today, but likely to see over the next couple of weeks, because you have to couple all of this with the fact that there will not be a resolution. There is not going to be a home run on this arbitrage trade for the short seller, at least until April 27th, but probably going to be June. Probably going to be early, mid-June, if not longer, if there is another rescheduling of the court date, which would not surprise me. Now, if you also take a look at the activity that you're seeing as far as cost to borrow rates and the short interest, it paints a pretty clear picture. The live short interest of free float sitting at 24.4%. I imagine over the last couple of weeks now, right? The last even week since we got the last official report, which was settlement day, February 28th, release day on March 9th. We should be getting another one here shortly. AMC has fallen exponentially since that last record date, February 28th. You're probably going to see the short interest go close to about 30%. If I were to imagine, right? Based off of the price action that we have seen with AMC. That's going to be bullish. That's going to give a lot of people a torch, I guess you can call it, to say, hey, AMC's 30% short. This is not a home run trade by any means. There's probably going to be a revote. That's probably what's ultimately going to happen. There's probably going to be a revote in Terra Capital. Their shares probably will be eligible to vote, is what I would imagine ultimately happens. There's going to be a revote, right? So you're probably going to see short interest in that 30% range. The amount of shares currently sold short sits at 126 million. Like I said, once this number does update, if the short interest goes to about 30%, if I'm correct, you're probably going to see about 145 million shares sold short at that moment in time. Over $1 billion of dollars short on AMC. But also look at this. You would have expected, since yesterday we got the vote, which came back as a yes, right? Everyone and their brother, sister, aunt, uncle, grandma, cousin voted yes, apparently, for this vote. You should have expected to see cost of borrow rates actually fall, because the volatility, the catalyst, was over. Instead, they're rising again, which shows there's going to be a lot of volatility, shows that it's probably not going to be a straight move down. You're probably going to get this relief bounce that could be fairly aggressive, if I were to say. Cost to borrow average spiking over 100% today, now at 313.15%. Cost to borrow max spiking about 45% today to 354.44%. Cost to borrow minimum spiking about 194% here today to where we currently sit at 195% cost to borrow minimum. What we can see from Interactive Brokers, you went from about earlier in the day yesterday to from about 105% cost to borrow rates to where we currently are at 139.5% cost to borrow rate. So cost to borrow rates are exponentially spiking. Even over the last 30 minutes, cost to borrow rates from Interactive Brokers have went up about 15%. So I think that in and of itself kind of shows you a lot. And you do have about 450,000 shares available to be traded. Option activity looks to be pretty negative. What do you expect? It's always going to be negative on AMC as of recently, at least. So when you put all of these factors together, it looks very clear that you're probably due for a larger bounce than what you are seeing today. I like to call it a mega bounce. If you take a look at the technicals here, you're also above now this downtrending line of resistance that has been our long-term resistance level to the upside. Every time you got a rally, you got rejected at this point. Well, you fell under it briefly today, right? And now you're back above that. Very, very positive. Now, really, you have a gap to fill back up to about $6 per share. And I think that's kind of where we're going. That would be about the mid-level, midpoint, whatever you want to call it, of the last couple of months, really, of 2023. That would be about the midpoint. So I do think that's more of a conservative estimate. I do think you could go higher than that, and I do think you're going to get a very strong bounce to close out the rest of this week, and that's exactly why. The data supports it, common logic supports it, and I support it. So that is going to do it for this video. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, source your comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. Keep in mind, none of this is financial advice as well. As you can see, AMC is going to be very volatile. Do not invest money that you cannot afford to lose. Quick disclaimer there, and this really goes without saying, right? We're not in high school. We're not in middle school, guys. We understand when you invest your money in risky stocks, you can lose all of your money. Don't be confused there. Like I said, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, all of that good stuff. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.